never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi guys, welcome back to My Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today is another fantastic day because my guest, Jason Shiers, like me, has gone through a lot of darkness. And whilst this is not a pissing contest, I think his darkness lasted quite a bit longer than actually mine. So even more important is for him now that we see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, literally, that we are out here to make this world a better place. And he clearly is out there to demystify mental health. He demystifies the maybe medicalization of the consequences, actually logical consequences of life after trauma. And that is really, really important. So I can't wait to talk to Jason. Jason Shiers, welcome to my show.
Thanks, Stephan. Thanks for having me. I always say I'm looking forward to hearing what I'm going to say because I never come with a pre-prepared story or any ideas about what might show up. So I'm happy to be in the moment and see what we talk about.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, having said that, I mean, when did your darkness start? When did you realize, well, with hindsight probably, that maybe, life was not such a bed of roses for you?
Well, I think that came with a sledgehammer, to be honest. Introduction to darkness, because my dad was killed in an accident when I was just very young. And so unknowingly, using hindsight, but for a 5-year-old boy, whose dad just went out one day and never came back, I was introduced to trauma, so to speak, in that way. And from there on, it just got worse and worse. And, I guess looking back, food simply, I lost one parent physically, but I lost the other parent anyway, because she was too wrapped up in it all to cope. So if anyone asked me to describe my childhood, it was in a one line, it would be work it out for yourself. That was my life, work it out for yourself. So that was my introduction to trauma, to struggles, to addiction. Right from that early age, food became my friend. It became my coping mechanism, my loyal companion, it always did what it said it would do. As a result of that, you can't hide what happens on the outside of your body when you're consuming copious amounts of food as a method of coping. So that was everyone else's introduction to my darkness, seeing me balloon in weight and wondering what was going on,
And of course, that food is there for you. The sugar rush, the warmth, that's a whole industry who is creating that perfect bliss point between crunchiness, saltiness, and fat. And once you have got that's like a warm pillow. It's lovely how you describe actually that it is the friend that is there for you. And especially as a child, I can very much see that. How was your school? Because often enough, children who don't find themselves at home or who have got lots of trauma at home, they try to escape. And sometimes school becomes that escape. Were you one of the children who took to class easily, or how did it go?
I had like this, I was very intelligent, and I won a full scholarship at a private school through my intelligence, but I was completely off the wall behaviorally and mentally, so I at a very young age, I won this scholarship, but I was stealing money from home. I'd started stealing money from home. And one of the crazy things that I did, just to give you an example of how I lived at 10 years old, I was put on antidepressants. I was first entered into the psychiatric system. Just not long after that, I was put on diet pills, tenuate dospan it was. They were appetite suppressants. And then at 12 years old, I stole quite a lot of money, bought a motorbike, and went to school wearing this prestigious private school blazer and bag and uniform, with no helmet, at like 7 o'clock in the morning, riding an off-road motorcycle across a very famous golf course, to get to school, and leaving the motorbike at a friend's house, so to speak. It's like, and then being in school and seeing my mum and his mum appearing in the classroom window like later that day with a realization. So that gives you an idea of what my early school life was like. And after that, I went to comprehensive school, which was just full of drugs and crime and fighting and chaos,
Oh dear. Okay. So your decision-making skills were not yet developed. Okay, that's fair call to say. But then again, which ones are at the age of 12 or even 18 or even 21? Come on, let's be quite clear about that. But then, of course, so highly intelligent, but school. Were you rebelling against school? Were you rebelling against authority?
Oh yeah, I was well gone by that point. I mean, I was committing crime. I was compulsively overeating. I was buying friends. I was lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what to make of life. I felt like I'd been handed this shitty life, that I really couldn't escape from, and I would do anything to find oblivion or escape from myself. At that point.
What was your first drug? What was your drug of choice later?
Yeah, I mean, heroin was my first drug, strangely.
Shit, that's an early start. How did that happen?
I mean, I like to say I was in the right place at the right time, or perhaps you might say that the wrong place at the wrong time. It depends which way you look at it. It's like how quickly devastation is to come in life. Often precedes change. So it was like, you could see it that way, but it certainly gave me an escape from myself as a very young teenager, who desired nothing but to be escaped from himself, not to live the life that had been given. So,
did you inject from the word go, or how did it go? Did you smoke it?
Yeah, I smoked it at first,
yeah.
And very quickly, I'd already been committing crime and finding ways and means to get more. It's like I'd already been doing that, so it became easy for me to make money, commit crime, to buy drugs. And the first time I got addicted to heroin lasted a few months as a young teenager, and then I went on to all the other drugs. I went through the whole typical progression, as many people do, through all the party drugs, and then back to heroin, which was the way.
That was the UK. Where exactly in the UK were you?
I was in the northwest of the UK, in a small seaside town at that time.
Right. Yeah, I think for the listeners and viewers, if the UK has continuously done studies, surveys, and asked the 16 to 24-year-old age group, typically a sample of about 1,500 every year. They take 1,500 people and ask them, "Hey, have you had any drugs in the last year?" And of this sample, 10% have consumed Class A drugs in the last year. That is the heroin, methadone, cocaine, those kind of things. So therefore, it must be said that certainly in the UK, hard drugs are easily to come by, and it's not a difficult thing whatsoever. So therefore, bloody hell, wrong place, wrong time, quite literally, by being in the UK. I don't think I would have struggled to find these drugs in Germany. No doubt they are around. No doubt there are statistics there too. But it's just I was not exposed to it in my early years, and maybe I was just incredibly blessed. Maybe had I been in the wrong place and wrong time, it would have not been work and then alcohol, but it would have been maybe some other drugs from the word go. Bloody hell. How was your relationship with alcohol? That's far easier to get to, much cheaper.
Yeah, I remember being drunk once or twice, but that was it. As a young teenager, it was It was just drugs for me. It was the quickest route to oblivion and devastation, to be honest. It's like,
Yeah, of
it,
course.
it just, when I first took drugs, it just felt like, this is it. You know,
Okay.
I just knew, you know, this was my way of escaping myself. Because of the very first time in my life, my mind, my own thoughts, what you might call the committee or the mental activity or self-hatred, self-loathing went quiet. It went away, you know, it
Yeah.
disappeared. And it's like I'd lived with that for years, and it had been so painful.
And that's what a lot of people say. That's what a lot of people say. I had another guest who described it when he had a nasty shoulder injury, and he came to the hospital, and they gave him a strong drug into the vein to help him with the admittedly pain there. And he said that pain went away, but far more importantly, all the pressure and all the pain in his heart went away immediately. And so this is something that we sometimes forget. And certainly as a doctor who wants to do the right thing by giving the patient the right medication at the right time, sometimes we treat more than one pain. And I think you had described it so beautifully. Bloody hell, man. Bloody hell. Was there an awareness in you that maybe this was not the right thing? Was there any shame or guilt?
There was a lot, you know, over the years. I mean, I stole from my family. I stole from my grandparents. I did a lot of things that I didn't feel good about, you know. And I can remember, like, physically walking my body in opposite directions when I was on my way to manipulate, to steal, to take money, to find ways to get more from the easiest source, which was the family. You know, it's kind of like, I can remember trying to physically walk my body in a different direction, and just the compulsion and the obsession was so intense that I just couldn't do it. So I knew something was off, something was wrong, and it never felt good to me inside. But the desperation to relieve myself of what I was experiencing was more intense, you know?
Yeah. Man. How long did that last? How long did you end up in that darkness?
That was 10 years, from, say, early teenage years, 13, 14 to 23, 24, when I first went to rehab.
Wow. What made you go?
There was a lot. And there was a lot. I was sick and tired, to be honest. I'd been in prison quite a lot of times already by that point, and been in psychiatric care with psychiatric intervention many times, and it looked like life was over, to be honest. It kind of felt like that. I ended up in a homeless shelter, and it's funny because I always tell a story of this homeless shelter. You know, that like, no, but the only rules were that, like, you had to be homeless and you weren't allowed to take drugs or alcohol. That was it. You know, and every single person that was dependent on drugs or alcohol. But yeah, one of the rules was that there was no drugs or alcohol. You know, and when I was in there, I think my brother came and via my mom, I think, you know, like, about getting me into rehabilitation, and there was this thing where they had to apply to the council, and I went to a rehab nearby simply because it was nearby, not because of any other reason. And I really thought heroin was my problem, and if I could just stop the physical, then after that I would be happy and everything would be wonderful, you know. And that was my, you know, I was absolutely certain, though, that I was not going to get any support because my mum had long since disowned me. You know, like, I wasn't allowed to go to the house. None of the family wanted me around. I wasn't safe. You had to lock down anything that was, you know, could be removed because I would take it. So that was my first, you know, my mum actually paid some of the funding for me to go to rehab, to my surprise at that time when I was 23. And that's when I got clean from drugs and alcohol, you know, so that was when that started. But it certainly didn't end addiction. You know, as soon as I put down drugs and alcohol, I picked up food again.
I was about to say.
I gained 70 kilos in 12 to 15 weeks in rehab. You know, it's kind of like I just constantly consumed and stole and ate out of bins, and I stole food and I ate leftovers and I took everything, and it was never addressed. I mean, looking back, it's a bit crazy to gain that much weight in that period of time. And you know, to the point where I couldn't get any clothes to fit me or anything. I was that overweight. You know, I think I was I get confused. Pounds. That was 350 pounds at the biggest. You know, 150 something kilos.
Yeah.
And you know, and yeah, I was just escaping. I mean, because I just call addiction like that, where when you understand it in that traditional medical or 12-step way, you know, it's like a whack-a-mole approach. You know, it's like you get rid of one thing and you just pick up another.
Absolutely.
It's like, you know,
absolutely. The cross addiction, and it's definitely there. Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
No, no doubt about that. That first rehab, I mean, the only rehab that I ended up in was luckily the one that worked for me, which was a 12-step program, but not religious, but a secular 12-step. What kind of rehab was that where you ended up?
It was a 12-step rehab. I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous and the 12 steps.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always say that I naively, because I don't believe in the disease of addiction now, I don't see it that way. I see it completely different. But for many years I did. And I just naively took on. They said to me, "You've got this thing called the disease of addiction." And I was just like, okay, whatever it is, you can't drink or use drugs ever again. Okay, you know, whatever it is, I'll do it. You need to go to meetings to be okay. Okay, I'll do it. You know, whatever it was, I was desperate. I would have done anything. And
Sure.
very naively, I just took those things naively or wisely, whichever way you look at it. You know, they were very helpful to me, and I don't have anything bad to say about that part of my journey. But you know, I guess I found a limitation in it somewhere along the way years later. You know,
That's interesting. But did it work for that period in your life? I mean, we're all on a journey, and there's nothing wrong to say, okay, you part from one aspect of rehab and move to another part in your life. That's normal. But did that work, that approach?
well, it saved my life. I can't argue that. You know, it stopped me from killing myself. It stopped me from killing others. And it stopped me from killing my family. You know, it's
Beautiful.
kind of like
Okay.
For those things, I'm ever grateful. You know?
Shit, yeah. Because I mean, a 10-year career in hard drugs, and you are still surviving. Well, that's already quite an achievement, may I say? Okay, you were so lucky that this was before the start of the current opioid epidemic, where you've got far more potent drugs getting sprinkled on whatever you believe you're taking, and the next thing you know is you've got a massive overdose and die. So bloody hell. So drugs were at least a little bit straighter than they are nowadays. They were still cut with all kind of shit. Did you end up with negative consequences from I assume you injected at the end?
Yeah, I mean, there was, endless negative consequences for years or even decades to come. You know, afterwards, it was like the financial, the physical, you know, the damaged relationships, you know, took a long time to repair those.
No, I mean, physical on your body.
Yeah, a lot of physical stuff. Yeah, at the time. I mean, like, I'm okay now, but like it just lasted for a long time. Some of that stuff, you know.
Shit, yeah. And sometimes we are lucky because our body can regenerate. We can do a tremendous amount of things. And that is the beautiful thing. That's what I'm saying. The past does not equal the future. Having said that, unfortunately, when you do share needles, when you do go to the more extremes of drug abuse, there are things like AIDS, there are things like sexually transmitted diseases, because the money needs to come from somewhere, etc., etc., etc. So you seem to be lucky that you did not end up with any of the deadly consequences of man.
Very lucky, but went to a lot of funerals, you know.
Shit, yeah, exactly. And that is so brutal there, and we need to accept that that this is very much alive out there, and that is essentially one of the likelihoods. You're either in jail, you're either in rehab, or you're dead. I think these are the three outcomes for us addicts. So, and End of the story. So, but I'm intrigued because here you say, on the one hand, the 12-step system has helped you. It helped you get back to the living, from the zombies to the living. I think that is one way of putting it.
Yeah.
But then you started developing. I mean, you were clean. Now what? You were sober. Now what? What did you do? And was there a period of post-traumatic growth?
I mean, like, I would call that another part of my journey. There's many facets of the overall experience, that happened. And I think that while I went to 12 steps and I had some great things happen, I met some great friends. Some of my friends I'm still friends with 30 years later now. Some of the journeys and things we've done together, have been amazing. But the bottom line is that my addiction was rife in many other areas, and my mental health was completely gone. It's kind of like the psychiatric care, the eating disorder, when I was still the obsessive gambling, pornography, money, even crime in recovery, for money, were going to meetings saying everything was great. It's like that's kind of how it was. And in fact, most other people I knew got clean. Let's say, I don't know what, I guess in Germany you use kilos, it's kind of, they got clean at 60, 70 kilos, and within a few months they were 120, 130 kilos. So it's kind of like, you doesn't take a mathematician to see what's going on with those numbers.
Of course.
Everyone is escaping themselves, their own experience. So what it tells you is that there's no internal ease, no peace, joy, contentment, and happiness. There is a way of coping that's better than self-destructing on class A's, but there's still some internal missing piece, or something that people are still escaping from.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And of course, trauma continues. It is. That's the problem. So you think, yay, I'm out of rehab. I'm clean now. I deal with all the past. And then the present happens. You think, fuck off. Were there more traumas waiting for you?
Yeah, I mean, like, as soon as you start in relationships, particularly if you had a trauma like mine, where somebody you love left you, it's kind of like on a somatic level, it's like as a small child, there's an immense fear of abandonment, fear of love, fear of being loved, a fear of all those things. So all that stuff shows up in relation, in mirror reflection to another, so as soon as relationships start, they're devastatingly painful, not knowing why, and having no clue about how to live, how to develop emotionally. That's why I started on the journey of psychotherapy and to become a psychotherapist, because I thought if I could learn this thing, psychotherapy, because everyone kept saying to me, you've got problems other than addiction, and I didn't even know what that meant, but I just thought, oh, sounds true, I've got a lot of problems. It's like, so I went to psychotherapy and I thought I quite like this, so I should learn how to do it. And if I learn how to do it, I'll be able to heal myself.
Yeah.
That was the reason I became a psychotherapist. And, to be honest, I was at the end of my psychotherapy training with an endless list of qualifications in different modalities. I was probably, I may be giving myself a discredit here, but like, I don't think I was any more wise or had any more idea about what happiness was than when I started. I really don't. I think my practice as a traditional psychotherapist in the traditional Western model of what I was taught is not useless, but somewhat. It's kind of like there's a missing piece.
Is that not a very common thing that people say? I mean, there are different modalities that maybe are a little bit, I don't say more efficient, although I want to say it, maybe faster, rather than 10 years psychotherapy. You maybe can achieve a similar outcome by maybe a different approach to the human brain, to the human behavior. And I think that is what you have experienced, isn't it?
Yeah, I just carried on in this endless search because I thought, if I don't really know happiness, because that's all anybody wants. They want to feel happy. Like, okay, they come with their struggles, with their relationships, with their eating, with their addictions. But what they really want is to experience some peace of mind and some contentment and some happiness. And if I don't know And I've never experienced that. How could I ever take anyone else there? That's kind of what I thought, you know, and I
Beautiful.
felt somewhat fraudulent in my work because I could sit with people in the dark. I could walk with people in the dark, but none of us knew where the light switch was. You know, none of us could point
Beautiful.
to the light, you know.
Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so who switched on the lights for you?
Yeah, I had like 22 years clean I was. And at this point, I've been going to meetings for 22 years. And I've been a psychotherapist for a long time. I had a long list of qualifications. I'd had practice. I'd done well on the outside. You know, it's kind of like financially, business-wise, I was an entrepreneur. I had multiple businesses. And I was so unhappy. You know, it's like, and I really I never ended the seeking. I talk about seeking in my story because seeking is our intuition of home, our knowing of home, you know, and in 12 steps, people used to say to me, you need to stop seeking. You need to stop seeking. Seeking's your problem. Seeking, if you stop seeking, you'll be okay. But seeking is our knowing that there's something more, that there's a place of rest, there's a place of peace, there's a place of joy inside of us. That's all it is. We just don't know where to look.
Yeah.
And, you know, in all my journeys through all Tony Robbins, through the Hoffman process, through the Landmark Forum, through silent retreats, meditations, and everything I could find, you know, EMDR, rapid transformational therapy, CBT, DBT, I tried it all, you know. I came across, I was watching a video, I wasn't watching it, I was recording a video called The Path of Effortless Change. And there was something about the word effortless that really stood out to me because I felt like, fuck, you know, I thought effortless sounds amazing because my life has been
Exactly.
like walking in quicksand, you know. I mean, is there such a thing as effortless change? I mean, if there is, I need to know about it, right? Because I need that. And I found myself mesmerized by this video of this guy talking who's called Michael Neal. He's a coach in LA. And it was, I couldn't say why. It wasn't the intellect. I wasn't like hearing, this is how to change, and this is what you need to do, and this is how you're going to feel better. That's what I've been searching for my whole life. I wasn't hearing that. I was just hearing something different that deeply resonated, felt like something I needed to know more about. And, you know, to cut a long story short, a year later, I ended up at his house in LA. And for what was called an intensive, which was 3 days, 5 people, and was probably the most relaxed experience I'd ever had. And I remember sitting there and, you know, me with my self-image, you know, let's call it that, you know, me with my idea of myself was sat there, you know, my idea of myself being well-educated, psychotherapist, knows a lot about change, been in recovery a long time. What else could anybody teach me? That was my idea of myself. You know? And this guy just said to me, you know, because no one had ever invited me to be present. You know, no one had ever said to me, can you just be here? And that's what he said to me. He said, he looked at me and I must have looked so tense and uptight, you know, because I was thinking about money's worth and how long the hours it was going to be and all this shit, you know. And he said to me, can you just be here? Can you put your book down and just be with us? You know, and I thought, shit, yeah, I never thought, no one's ever asked me that before, you know, no one's ever invited me to stop stressing, stop thinking, stop, you know, working out. He said to me, don't listen to this to see if it's right or wrong, to see if it's good or bad, to see if it's like something, you know, don't listen waiting to answer. He said, just allow it, just to be here, just allow stuff to drift over your head if it's not making sense, and allow yourself just to give yourself this time to be here. And I thought, shit, yeah, why not? You know, I'm here. I've flown all the way to LA. You know, it's kind of like, well, I may as well be here, you know, instead of somewhere else. It's kind of like, and in those 2 days when that happened, I mean, I remember, I don't know what happened. I do now, but I didn't then. And I sat outside this Airbnb after those 2 days, just feeling this extreme amount of bliss and peace in my heart, you know, and I just thought, fuck me, I have no idea what just happened, but I just feel so fucking
Beautiful,
calm and so relaxed, and nothing had changed. My mind was going, yeah, but you haven't got more money, you haven't got a new job, you haven't got a new girlfriend, you haven't lost weight, you know, how come you feel better? Because that's what life looked like. It was a an external experience of getting all your ducks in a row. But I'd realized that transformation happened on the inside, not on the outside. And there was an intense sense of knowing that I'd found myself. You know, it was like it so much so that I'd had a therapist for 7 years, and this time, and I found it very difficult to get a good therapist. I was very picky, and I actually sent an email straight away on that Friday evening when that 2 days finished, saying, I don't need therapy anymore. My next session will be the last session. You know, it was like I was that certain about so many things. I knew I wouldn't go to meetings anymore. I knew I wasn't an addict. I knew that wasn't true. And I don't know how I knew, but I just knew. You know, it was like there was some real strong sense of certainty inside of me that that had served its purpose at the time, and that it was no longer. It was more now a restriction than a truth, you know, for me, and that there was something more for me to see about life, you know. And that's where it started to unfold. That's when my life as I have it now, as I see it now, started to unfold inside of me. I was no longer chasing things on the outside. I mean, from that point onwards, I've never had any struggle with addiction, with food, with weight, with psychiatric care. It all just disappeared. You know?
May I ask, during that weekend, something happened. Now, I've seen similar responses in myself temporarily after hypnosis. I've seen certainly after intervention that basically scramble the brain, rewrite programs, because we've got all these kind of underlying core beliefs, these underlying subconscious programs running that are there from childhood that often enough are holding us back. So here you were, something happened that weekend. Can you, with hindsight, put your fingers on that?
Yeah. It was an awakening to the fact that life is happening inside and not outside. You know, it was a realization that I'd been chasing external things, including, I mean, like, I haven't talked about a lot of the stuff. Like, for example, in those 22 years when I was clean, I had 7 cosmetic surgeries to change my body on the outside to try and get rid of fat, you know, because I was so obsessed with the outside of me, trying to fix the inside of me. All the other, that's just one of the crazy things the extremes that I'd gone to. Yeah. And like, it was an awakening to, oh shit, you know, like, even like I said at the start, you know, Jason is just an idea in my own mind. You know, Jason is not a fixed entity, a flawed individual with a long list of psychiatric diagnoses and problems and trauma and all these things. That's not who I am. That's what I thought I was before I had that awakening moment.
Sure.
And I thought there was a requirement or a need for me to remain broken and somehow cope at best with what had happened. But I saw that via the realization that life is happening inside me, not outside of me, that like all that was just a head full of flawed ideas. It wasn't happening now. And I didn't have to live as if it was me, you know. It was like an awakening to the truth of all human experience, you know, like the oneness of life. There was an awakening to that. It was a complete paradigm shift in understanding. My mind had seen something that was transformational, you know.
Which is beautiful, which is absolutely gorgeous. I'm so pleased for you that you had that moment of clarity, that moment of peace. I certainly know those moments. I cherish those moments, but these moments can be quite fleeting because their life has got a way of just dishing you up another shit sandwich and inviting you to eat it with gusto. So what do you do in order to maintain, or Shall I be negative? Shall I say, ooh, how do you chase that? How do you chase that feeling of, well, because that's what we do. What the quotation mark addicts do. We chase that moment of bliss when the drug hits you, when the alcohol hits you, when you have got your orgasm with whoever has got a heartbeat. So what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's true what you say. It's very easy to then exchange, let's say, in my case, food and body shape and money with spiritual seeking. They just become the next addiction. You can objectify them in the same way.
Yeah.
But like, luckily, I guess for me, that there was with this intense realization. I mean, I think what you're talking about is kind of like when you have some sort of cathartic or somatic release, neuroplasticity allows for some sort of change in those neural pathways. It's like, but if you don't maintain some looking or seeing in some new direction, it's just gonna contract again and go back to those old habitual beliefs and ways of being.
Absolutely.
But for me, I just continued to look, and what I'd been, it was almost like, I describe it like dominoes. Once I'd seen that initial crack in the creation of experience, that everything I looked at after that started to fall over like dominoes.
Yeah.
And like, there was no return for me. Let me say it a different way. There was a period of bliss for a couple of years, and then there was a bit of a slap in the face, so to speak. Trauma still happens.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like,
exactly.
But there was a huge shift in those 2 years that life was never going to be the same again, and it wasn't, and it has never been the same again. But it didn't free me of all suffering. There was that.
Good.
That came later. I certainly did spiritually bypass my trauma for a while. I negated it. I said it didn't exist. I overlooked it. I ignored it. I lived a happy life, but when I found love, when I found a connection with my current partner, it certainly, the traumas all showed up again, the body, and that's when I started becoming more somatic based in my work.
Interesting. Okay. Having said that, I'm still hunting for answers here, and I'm still not letting you off the hook, brother, because you said earlier you had in your earlier life, you had tried it all, quotation mark. You went down the meditation route. You went down many other therapy routes, which didn't actually help you at that time, or at least you didn't perceive it to help. Now there was this breakthrough. And now you're saying, okay, you use spirituality as a kind of, again, more coping mechanism rather than fulfillment and growth. What makes you grow now? How do you live your life so that you maintain a proximity to that blissful, calm Zen? And I say proximity because we can't always be perfectly in tune with ourselves. It just doesn't work. It's just, life is not like that. But how do you get closer to that?
After the awakening period, where that realization was had, and then trauma showing up again, it forced me to look inwardly at the body-based trauma reactions, that were there. And I think it's true what you said, that and it's not about trying all these different things, but different things can result in different results at different times, depending on where you are and what you're willing to see.
Absolutely.
And perhaps I'd met many people who wanted to point me to stuff over the years, but I'd just gone, no, that's shit. I don't want to do that. What I really was saying was, I'm not ready to look at that just now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I've now been quite a lot of years in different somatic practices and so on, and like from spiritually aware to fully embodied, realizing that there's no blissful thing called enlightenment to experience. We're living a very relative human experience, which includes all the reactions of the body and the contractions and the sensations that come with traumatic experiences. But the more that you befriend yourself and start to become okay, and through somatic experiencing, somatic release, and so on, that you become. And there's also a deep knowing, a deep centered knowing of oneness, of non-duality. It's kind of like in life of the shared experience of being human, of all people, that supersedes all triggers. Like experience is going like this all the time. Shit day, good day, shit day, good day. It's kind of like, but there's never, the knowing never disappears. It's always there. It supersedes all experience. Experience is temporary. The knowing of our true nature is permanent.
Interesting. Very interesting. I like that. There is indeed, and what you're talking is essentially the outcome of many years of searching and many years of realizations. Yeah. Maybe you've become wise, although there's such a corny description. But there's something happening after being on a path of self-discovery, of growth, etc. At some stage, you maybe come to be at peace with the shit that is happening, that is called life. I like that. I like that. But I mean, how there are certain ways that we can maybe make it more likely that you have got a good day compared with having a shit day. Of all those different modalities that you have been exposed to over the last few decades, what has stuck for you? What has worked for you? What is working for you today? How did you prepare for this interview? What actually worked to make your day good today?
Yeah, well, a couple of things I want to say. One is the mind always wants to know why and how. It's kind of like, and I guess that's just how we're conditioned. Like to if we could work out how this actually works, then we could put it into practice ourselves. It's like that's like a very common human thing. But like what I'm pointing to here is something beyond that. A space. And words fall short, to describe it. So, cool. and words are all we have, So we have to do the best we can with a feeling state that comes beneath the words, like a sense of calmness, a sense of peace, a sense of trust in life itself that shines through more than the words themselves come through. So I'd like that to be known, and of everything that makes sense to me the most is what I do in my own work. It's kind of like because it's an awakening of the mind and an experiencing of the body. It's like it has to. For me, the awakening of the mind carried me a long way to disconnect me from the story of addict, endless list of psychiatric labels, childhood trauma. It disconnected me from the story. It disconnected me from connecting the imaginary dots, that weren't even there, because I was creating the dots as well as connecting them. It stopped me doing that, because we can exacerbate our struggles and suffering in our own mind on a daily basis using our own mind. It's like we can make it 10 times worse than it is, because in its rawest form, what we're experiencing is an energy of the mind and a sensation of the body. Right. But then all the meaning attached to it is related to me as a separate self, and then perpetuated via my own mind. So the awakening of the mind freed me of that, doing that, not completely, but to a large extent. And then the explorations and the willingness to be with the body, because I find for most people that come to me, like, where do you experience feelings? Everything happens here. It's like above the neck. It's like, what happens in your body? Like when you feel sad, or where do you experience it? I don't know. Nobody knows. It's not, because they've dissociated at a young age, so much so that they've become disconnected from their somatic experience as a way of coping and intelligence, by the way. And this is the question you asked me at the start. It's about everything is intelligence: addiction, dissociation, eating disorders, struggles, suffering, mental health stuff is a way of coping. It's an intelligent mind-body system that finds a way to be with internal dis-ease, and it just manifests itself in something that has been medicalized and turned into an entity unto itself that's then made money out of. So that being with the body, the somatic experience of the body, learning to make friends with your sensations, and that deeper realization of the mind is to me an essential part of finding peace in a shitty world, at times.
I think that is really, really important. I think that feeling your feelings, however stupid it is, or how stupid it sounds, is actually so important. And to accept those feelings as messengers from your body, to actually say, hey, at the moment things are not right, and hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and that maybe your body has entered a state in which it shouts for help, in which things manifest in your body in a certain way, that you can use as messengers. And that is so beautiful. That is how I look at it nowadays. Have I had enough sleep? Oh no, if I don't, I'm ending up like that, tight as shit. And if there are certain other things, there's certain bodily reactions that I recognize nowadays as very clear signs for certain things in my mind, etc. And it's like a nice system once you get to know it, once you stop running from it, once you stop trying to escape from it. So it's beautiful. And you sound very much like someone who is getting more in tune with those messengers.
Yeah, I think that'll be a lifetime journey as well. I'm not under any illusion about that. It's like the mind body is a innately intelligent system, as you said. And it's like, take chronic pain and skin conditions, bad neck, bad back, eczema, all those things. They're all manifestations of trauma, and that just show up in the body in different ways. It's just finding a way to express it, it's finding a way to come out. And in more and more of my work with this stuff, I realize and see it within myself, and I see it within people that I'm working with. It's like the way that actually most separation and most suffering is a result of trauma, responses, reactions, I'm not talking about specifically about traumatic events like I had, but that's part of it, but just trauma as in a lack of something that's needed for a child to grow healthily, a lack of love, or constant shaming or constant anger or aggression or whatever it is, all of those are trauma, as a way that then manifest themselves in different ways in adult life,
That's very, very true. And I love it how you put that. This is not a pissing contest. We often see trauma as something where you have to have seen your best friend being blown up on the battlefield. Then you admit, okay, that's trauma. Okay, I accept that. But trauma can be so much more. And each and every person has their own experiences of trauma, regardless what that is. And you don't need external validation to say, yeah, this is trauma. No, this is not trauma. That's bullshit. It is so important to come to terms with your own perceptions, with your own beliefs, with your own things. But in order to do so, often, we are not just stopping our life and actually let's think a bit about our past. Let's think a bit about the trauma. Now, no one ever does that. We are caught up in our rat race, we're caught up on our hamster wheel, and we just keep going. And sometimes it takes some 2x4 hitting you in the head for you to actually stop chasing and escaping, but actually maybe saying, whoa, I need someone who can help me figure out what the shit is happening there. And I think that is where you come in. So what would you advise someone? Okay, let's go do it differently. Imagine you had a time capsule and you could go back to your younger self. What message would you tell your younger self?
It's so difficult in hindsight, isn't it? Because some ways all of us do this. We look back at our life and we say everything that happened makes complete sense now. It's kind of like all these things happen for a reason to guide me to here. And from that perspective, I can even have gratitude for the loss of my dad, as much as it's the most painful thing in my life still. It's like I can even have gratitude for the beauty, for the lack of being seen from my mum, because how much I see my own children, how much I'm present with them. I can see those things. So it's like, looking back in hindsight, it's very difficult for me to say or to want for anything different now. At the time, wow, I would have said so many different things. And I get quite often, I have a lot of friends with teenage children. They want to refer their children to me, to work, to kind of help them, that perhaps they're going through mental health struggles, depression, addiction, self-harming, eating disorders, stuff like that. And all I really wanted was to be seen. All I really wanted was to be okay, to be me, and that felt like the last thing that I could be, was to be okay, to be me, because it was just, see, this is as well, when I talk about the medical model and stuff, I mean, all my mum knew, she, I guess at this time, she picked up a Yellow Pages or a phone book, because there was no internet or anything. And she looked through it, trying to find help for her son, who was struggling with himself. Like, where the fuck do you look at in 1980 for a help? So
I love it. I love it that you say that. Yeah.
She found the psychiatric center,
Yeah.
the local psychiatric center. That's what she did. And she went there with no idea whatsoever. But those people guided her to put me on medication and tell her that I was depressed and all these things. It's like, these things happened. All I wanted was to be loved and to be seen and to be noticed. But like, they were clueless. They didn't know what they were doing,
And that's beautiful how you described it, and how you give your mum credit, because she had her own trauma. She was doing the best she could under the circumstances, given the limitations at that time. But even nowadays we have got the internet. Nowadays you can look at everything, but we are still drowning in a sea of information where, you get so much shit bombarding you that it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole and not get the right help. And I think that is where people like you come in, Jason. You kind of have done the hard work. You literally were the guinea pig of therapy, so to speak. You tried it all, man. So okay, so therefore you have got actually insight, and that's where one part of your power lies. You're just significantly further down the path than many other people. That's so wonderful. You are a man who can listen and who can hear what people are saying. More importantly, you hear what they do not say. You know some of the questions to ask that brings out within your clients, within your patients, however you want to call them, the people that you meet. You have got the power to open the doors for them by asking the right questions. And I think that is so beautiful. That is so wonderful for people like you who have been there, done that, have vomited on the T-shirt. And that makes you inevitably a powerful ally to have on your side or have by your side. So that's brilliant. So if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you, Jason?
Yeah, my podcast, misunderstandingsofthemind.com, is very much in line with demystifying mental illness and kind of and traditional models and stuff, and seeing the innate intelligence of our system at work, around all different subjects, around addiction, around anxiety, depression, relationships, all areas where people typically struggle. And there's I've just started a couple of new series is on there. One is about trauma healing and spirituality, and the other is just people's conversations with people that have had transformation and experience, a momentary experience of seeing something different that changed their lives. So that's all on there.
Beautiful.
My website, wideworldcoaching.com, is where you can find me as well.
Fantastic. And guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast, because the show notes have got it all. And whilst you're down there, press the like and the subscribe button, bidding, bidding, so that you don't miss any of these beautiful guests that I have got. Equally, check out Jason's work. What have you got to lose? And more importantly, what could you possibly gain? And my guess is by checking him out and maybe considering working with Jason, you will expose yourself to a world of insights, of information, and quite a likely transformation to someone who is more at peace with him or herself. And this is probably the best place where you can be in this world. You can't change the world around you, or only tiny bits of it, but you can change the way you are at peace with the world. And I think that is a beautiful, beautiful goal. So Jason, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you so much for having come onto my show. It was a very insightful thing, which made me reflect quite a bit. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Cool. And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with passion. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.